Listen up, y'all, because this is it. The numbers we're using are so vicious. Today is example 4 and example 5 from lesson 3.3. So you can continue your notes right where you left off. The first concept that we are going to talk about is slope. We will use slope for the rest of the year, so it's important that you understand this concept and know how to find slope given a graph, a table. So let's get started. It says the slope of a line is the ratio of rise over run. So technically, slope is the exact same thing as rise over run, which we talked about yesterday with rate of change. So the slope m, I don't know why they use the variable m, but m is what they use to describe slope. So you will always see the variable m represented by slope. So it says the slope m of a non-vertical line through any 2 points can be found as follows. So make sure that you have this equation here in your notes because we're going to be using that shortly. Change in y over the change in x. All right, so it says find the slope of a line that passes through these 2 points. So I am going to rewrite the 2 points. I have -3, 2, and I have 5, 5. Now when I'm just starting out, what I always like to do is just label each point. So here's x1, y1, because this is my first set of coordinates, and then x2, y2 is my second set of coordinates. So my equation is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So now I'm just going to plug in the points. Y2 is 5 minus y1, which is 2, divided by x2, which is 5, minus x1, which is -3. And 2 negatives here make one big positive. So 5 minus 2 is 3. 5 plus 3 is 8. Here is my slope of that line. Now it's very important about slope, a few things to remember, is that we can always simplify our fractions, but we're never going to put our fractions into decimals. So 3/8 is in simplest form as a fraction, so we're just going to leave it like that, and we'll explain later why that's so important. But again, don't ever convert your fractions to a decimal. Your answer is just simply 3/8. So let's try another one. I have -3, 4, -3, -4, -2, -8. So again, I'm just going to put my labels on top so I know exactly which points to pull from. My equation is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now I'm just going to plug in the variable or the points. So a -8 minus a -4 all over -2 minus a -3. So my 2 negatives here become positive, and my 2 negatives here become positive. So -8 plus 4 is still -4, and -2 plus 3 is 1. So -4 over 1 does simplify to -4. -4 over 1 or just -4 would be the correct answer for the slope of this line. Next example. I have -3, 4, and I have 4, 4. x1, y1, x2, y2. Well, when I solve this one, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. For this one, 4 minus 4 is over 4 minus a -3. So my answer for this one is 0 over 7 because 2 negatives make a positive here. Well, 0 divided by anything is 0. So your answer is not really 0 over 7. Your slope is 0. Okay? So with that being said, This is the open-ended question on the Google page. So take a minute to pause the video and see if you can find the slope of this line, just like we did in the previous examples. All right, the last thing is undefined slope. Same concept, -2, -4, and -2, 3. Here's x1, y1, x2, y2. My equation, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, so for this one, I have 3 minus a -4 all over -2 minus a -2. Well, for this one, I get +7 over 0. Well, if you put 7 divided by 0 in your calculator, it would come up as an error. There is no number that can be divided by 0, so our answer is undefined. Hence the example here is undefined slope. So if you solve a slope and your denominator is ever 0, it's an undefined slope. I also consider it no slope. It has no slope, it's undefined. So just a concept summary here. If your slope answer is positive, your graph is going to go from left to right. If your slope answer is negative, it's going to slope down from left to right. Zero slope is a horizontal line. So this would be an example of y equals 3. Would be an example, has a slope of 0. Where this one, x equals 3, would be an example of an undefined slope or no slope. All right, the last example is finding coordinates given the slope. So we're going to set it up the exact same way, but notice here we're trying to find that missing point and they give us the slope. So I have 6, 3, and R2. Here's my x1, my y1, my x2, y2. So I'm going to set this up and I'm going to say 2 minus 3 all over r minus 6. I followed the rules, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And I'm going to set it equal to a slope of 1/2. Now, in order to solve for r, we're going to cross multiply. So I get 2 times 2 minus 3, and I'm going to set that equal to 1 times r minus 6. Well, distributive property, 2 minus 3 is -1 times -2 is -2 on this side, and I get r, or 1r, minus 6 on this side. So if I need to solve now for r, my last step is to add 6 to both sides. And I get 4 to equal r. So that last missing point is 4. And again, you're finding a point on your graph given the slope. So again, we solved it. We set it up y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and we set it equal to the slope that they gave us. And then we're going to cross multiply to solve for the given variable, which was r. Oh, this question will actually not be on the Google form. We already had an open-ended question on the Google form. But what I want you to do is take a minute to answer this, and then we'll come back and see if you got the same answer as I did. So pause the video, and then we'll come back and check. All right. So I'm going to set this up. I have P4, and I have 3, -1. So it's -1 minus 4 all over 3 minus p. And I'm going to set it equal to -5 over 8. And I'm going to cross multiply here. So I get -5 times 3 minus p is equal to, Well, -1 minus 4 is -5, and it's 8 times -5, which is -40. So now we're going to use a distributive property. I get -15. -5 times a negative p is a positive 5 p's equals -40. I'm going to add 15 to both sides. I get 5p to equal -25. So p equals -5. Hopefully you got the same answer as I did. We're going to spend all day tomorrow practicing slope, how to find slope in general, and then also finding a missing point given the slope, just like we did here. So if you have any questions, make sure you fill them in on the Google form. Reminder that there is not a multiple choice question on this, so make sure you just pick any multiple choice question or A, B, C, or D on the form, otherwise it won't submit correctly. All right, we will see you tomorrow. Have a good night.